there's always this image of people that we have of our heroes that, sometimes the people closest to them, it's like, man, I love the fact that everybody loves this person I'm connected with.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes there are misconceptions, or sometimes there are things that it's like, I wish people understood more about this. Like, we feel like we know so much about your family legacy and about your blessed father. But I
Mm-hmm.
wonder, are there things that in your heart that you wish that we knew, or maybe misconceptions that the public has that you would like us
I
to?
I would say two things stand out to me. One would be my father did not pretend to be perfect, and he would owe up to his mistakes and acknowledge them. And if you could do that with your children, he did that with everyone. Me and my father have had really deep conversations about sins and repentance.
Mm,
And this is another thing that I just admire about him so much. Because as proud as he was and as confident as he was, when you may think he's, oh, he loves himself. My father, he was deeply spiritual. And we would have conversations about, I shouldn't have done this. I should hope Allah forgives me. I wish I would have done that. I wish I would have known that. Very reflective. Um, and some things he just, maybe he got this from a Sufi book or an Islamic book, but I remember asking him about the Parkinson's and what he felt about it and his destiny with it. And he said, I'd rather suffer now than in the hereafter,
mm-hmm.
and studying Islam and knowing that calamity should bring you closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He definitely understood that and he accepted that. That I don't think people understand about him, because when you see him, you see many iterations of my father. You see him in the nation talking about separatism. You see him over here talking about this, and so he went through. He had definitely a spiritual evolution, and it was all videotaped, right? So that Muhammad Ali, from his retirement to his death, was just very reflective, very repentful, that's a word. I don't think that's a word, but
We know what you
anyway,
mean.
yeah. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, just in talking about it and being open about it, and so people don't know that side of him. I don't believe. The other part of him is his children. He has 9 children, and he always say, my dream is to live on a street where all, or on some property where all my kids had a house and we could be with each other all the time. And when you look at video footage of him, or you go to his museum, or you see documentaries, the children are really not talked about, and that's fine. It's on purpose a lot of the time. Some
Yeah.
people that have been around him kind of make it an agenda to keep the kids out of things, and that's fine too, because we're not really the kind of people that are going to force an issue about
Mm-hmm.
being seen.
Mm-hmm.
But he loved his kids. There have been books about him where the author would want the kids to be in it, and the person, that's working with him will go, they don't have anything to do with it. And my father knew that his legacy was his children,
Yeah.
and he wanted to always be around his kids a lot. And so people may not know that by looking at the documentaries, by looking footage of him. He just, that, I mean, I would visit him at 14 and take out a picture of me as a baby, of him with me as a baby, or he takes some pictures out of his wallet and he just starts crying. And I'm
Mm.
like, Daddy, I'm right here. Why are you crying? I just wish we could be together more and travel so much.
Mm.
And people may not realize, as a Black father, as a father, period, just his kids being around him was so important, and he was so happy with his kids around him.
Just how deeply loving and how deeply sensitive he was. Like I remember
Mm-hmm.
hearing you tell a story once about, that that he really understood that part of the industry of being able to live a sustainable life with boxing was that you have to hype and you have to promote the fights and things like that. And
Hmm.
sometimes there's got to be, he was really good at putting a lot of theater into that stuff. And I heard once you were telling the story of, what he had this like, epic kind of relationship with Joe Frazier, but that he realized at some point that Joe Frazier had actually taken some of that stuff personally. And you describe a moment of him really realizing that Joe Frazier had actually been hurt by that.
He was a competitor and had his mean streak, you know what I'm saying? And Joe Frazier had gotten his title without fighting him. And,
Hmm.
you know, he is, he was competitive and did have an ego. Everyone has an ego. We all have to keep our egos in check.
Hmm.
And what he said went a long way. And Frazier never did anything to him or against him personally to feel like he deserved that kind of ridicule. And I think, yeah, my father's doing it as a joke, but I don't think he realized the repercussions it had in his personal life. So yeah, he really regretted doing that and apologized and understood that wasn't a good moment for him. And
But
but again, to tell us that and admit to that, how that impacted me when I do make a mistake or do something wrong. Like, how are you going to change it? How are you going to fix it? How are you going to acknowledge it and resolve those issues?
it's one of those really instructive things that I think we need to know that about our great people. There was
Hmm.
and like you said, like a lot of times there's because these people are so great, it's really easy to mythologize certain things, and I don't even think
Hmm.
there's anything necessarily wrong with that. But like I help a lot of people come into Islam, and after looking at the movie and reading the autobiography of Malcolm X, there's this feeling that this man went from being the worst gangster in the world, that atheist that they called Satan,
Hmm.
to being this
Hmm.
model Muslim overnight. You know what I mean? And like maybe that's the
Right.
case, but it's more likely
Enough.
the case that it was a
Yeah.
process. So
Oh yeah. Nothing's overnight. Yeah.
it's it's
Nothing
it's
is
really
overnight.
it's really a beautiful
Hmm.
thing to be able to witness the humanity of our heroes, and
Hmm.
to see them have those moments of reflection and growth, and to see them especially live long enough to be able to recognize and actually take steps to correct things that they may be, that in
Right.
the moment they didn't realize that
Right.
there was damage being done.
Right. And and the biggest lesson is, we have a very merciful God, and
Hmm.
we never should be in a state of mind to think that we cannot be forgiven.
Yeah.
That's insulting to our creator. So, you know, pray for repentance and change behavior. Change
Hmm.
behavior, and if you mess up again, change it again. It's that's those evil dark forces wants us to believe that there's no hope for us
Right.
or whatever we're dealing with, and
Yeah.
that's the bigger lesson. And you constantly have to say, look, it's another day, let me start over, let me
Hmm.
pray on that and keep it going. And be vulnerable enough and transparent enough to tell your kids, I'm not perfect, or tell your spouse or whomever, because that's the path to getting better. Doing the right thing is a muscle. It's something we got. I remember I used to run marathons, and it's like I jumped in the marathon without training. I couldn't walk for 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, next time I have to train, the right way. So you're constantly practicing that behavior and those sharpening those skill sets, your interpersonal skills and your patience skills and listening skills. You have to be so mindful
Hmm.
of yourself. Yeah.